Okay, so it was the 27th of September was the day that we got to fly from Kilimanjaro. I was invited along on an expedition with a company called Paraglide Kilimanjaro. It was me and 5 other pilots. One of them was flying tandem. So Kilimanjaro's entirely in Tanzania. It's 5,895 metres tall, which makes it the largest freestanding mountain in the world, and it's the highest in Africa. It gets climbed a lot because it's not technical to climb, and something like 30,000 people apparently attempt the summit every year. Quite a few have flown off it too, beginning in 1976 with an American guy called Rudy Kashesi. And there's some things on the internet you can find and read. So 1979, Ashley Doubtfire wrote in Wings magazine, and you can read his story. They took hang gliders up there and flew hang gliders off. I don't know how you could carry a hang glider up the top of there, and obviously there's porters to help, but it's an incredible achievement. And Bill and Steve Moyes also flew hang gliders in 1982, and their Birdman of Kilimanjaro film is definitely worth watching. The next line on there is something I didn't know about until about a week ago, which is the first paragliders were flown from there in 1987 by 2 French ladies who are both fantastic climbers. They're not particularly experienced paraglider pilots, and Catherine Destebel, apparently it was her 3rd ever flight, and she hasn't flown since. And paragliders in those days, apparently their wings were 7-celled. Yeah, fantastic. So I don't know where they landed. They couldn't have flown down to Moshi because it's 31 kilometres away, and I don't think it would have had the glide, but that's, brilliant to know. And then in 1999, Claire and Zeb flew tandem as part of their 7 Summits mission. So they flew from the top of the 7 highest peaks on the 7 continents. They didn't have permission. They tried to get permission, but didn't get any response from the authorities. And so when they landed, they were confronted by the locals who were, I suppose, just worried about what they were doing and what they were up to, and they ended up having to pay them off and run away quick. And there are other stories as well of intervening years. So Tomacock and Air, I think, tried to do it in 2007, but the guards are quite on the case, and they took away one of the guys' kit, and neither of them ended up flying from there. But Paraglide Kilimanjaro, this company that took me with them, they applied for permits starting at about that time, around the year 2000, because they desperately wanted to do it as well, and it took 10 years of petitioning to get the permits put into place. And their first flying mission was in 2011. So South Africans Andrew Smith and Pierre Carter, who had a tandem passenger, Marianne Schwankart, and Chris Lotter was from Namibia, they were the first to paraglide with permission from the summit. And then the biggest ever expedition was in 2013. The Australians, Wings of Kilimanjaro, they tried to mount this massive charity event, so they wanted to raise $1 million Australian and to get 200 people to fly together from the top. So logistically it was a fantastic, an enormous effort, and I think just under 100 people got to the top, but unfortunately they didn't have the weather. It was really windy, nearly everybody went back down, apart from Babu, who had flown from Everest the year before, and he recognised something in the weather patterns. He said, if this happened in the Himalayas, it would mean good weather is following. And so one of the Tanzanian guides that was with him agreed to stay with him to wait and see if they would get better weather the next day. And they did manage to fly off, but it wasn't in easy conditions. It was still really windy. And they actually ended up taking off from the lee side. But they flew down safely and landed safely. But that was, quite a story. So this is the team that I went with. So up on the back row on the left, that's Pierre Carter from Paraglide Kilimanjaro. He's done the X-Alps 3 times, and he's partway through his own 7 summits, 7 flights mission. On the right, nearest to me at the back row is Alistair, and next to me in the front row is Linda. They're also Paraglide Kilimanjaro. The other 3 at the back and myself are solo pilots, and Dawn on the bottom right was a tandem passenger with Pierre. And it's her lovely footage that we're watching tonight. She's an amateur camerawoman and filmmaker, and she makes lovely movies. This is the route we took. It's called the Rongai route. So we approached from the north of the mountain, near the Kenyan border, and the green blobs are where we camped. So the first green blob was actually the first camp. That was 1 day in, and then so we split it into 5 days walking. And it's actually my Strava track from my watch. So the long one down is obviously the flight back into Moshi. These are the porters, so even a small team of 7 of us had a lot of porters with us. There was something like 20 porters plus cooks. They were allowed to carry up to 12 kilos each of our kit, plus they had to carry their own kit. They had to carry, there was a food tent, gas, all the food. They're amazing fit guys, and they always arrived before us. They set everything up. They set us up a lovely food tent that we could hang out in the evening. They just made it so easy and lovely for us. And I kind of think that everybody else always gets all the glory, but these guys work so hard. The next few pictures are just to show you how much the landscape changes from the bottom to the top. So you start off at just less than 2,000 metres, and it's tropical rainforest. And here these guys are walking past a farm, so people are still growing things, although not very much higher than that. They can't grow things anymore, so this is kind of the end of the farming area. And you saw on the film there are monkeys swinging through the trees, and it's all green and hanging bearded lichens and things. And then the next day we're walking through giant heather and stuff. This is the moorland area. And as you get higher again, it becomes more patchy and turns much sparser. And there you can see that's Moenzi Peak. So the volcano used to have 3 cones, but one of them collapsed and it's left 2, which is this one, Moenzi, which is extinct. And the other one is called Kibo, that's where the highest point is, and that's where we flew from. And it's dormant, so one day it could erupt again. And here is the walk between Moenzi and Kibo, and it's an alpine desert, so it's very brown and very flat and just rocks and the odd tree, like succulent cactusy sort of tree that survives, nothing much else. And the huts that you can see just ahead in the distance, they're actually 200 metres above where we stood, but it's very misleading, the whole perspective. And we also, while we were approaching this, we got to see the mountain for the whole day. So when we started, it was blue sky, as it had been every day. And then by 9 o'clock, all these clouds come in. And we knew from that we wouldn't be able to launch after 9 o'clock in the morning. So it we had to use that to help us decide what time to leave. Actually, midnight this night we left, to try and do the summit so that we would get to the top before the clouds came in, because it would be impossible to fly. This is the summit day, so we got up at midnight, as I've said, and we basically zigzagged up the volcanic scree slopes for hours and hours, just in the dark with head torches. Here we're just approaching the crater rim, so the top, and the sun's already risen, you can see. We had hoped to be on the top rim by sunrise, so we were in a bit of a rush after this point. And here we are arriving on the takeoff. This is the place that the South Africans and Chris flew from in 2011. We hadn't actually done the summit. We didn't go and touch the summit signpost because by the time we got here, we were really worried about the clouds coming in and making it impossible to fly, and we had to make a choice. Either we go up, touch the signpost, come back down, and maybe it's not flyable, or we just fly now, because actually the wind was completely perfect. So we had loads of room to lay out, a very gentle breeze coming perfectly up the slope, exactly what you could have asked for. You couldn't have changed anything to make it any more perfect. So we decided we're not going to blow our chance. We didn't touch the summit signpost, we just all got ready and flew off. Does anybody want to ask any questions? Please don't.
How long was the glide?
The glide, it was 31 kilometres and it took an hour and 20 minutes. But the top to bottom is 5,000 metres, so it's a long one.
Do we think it's the biggest top to bottom in the world?
Well, we were discussing this and we think maybe it is, because if you flew from Everest, PS said you'd land at base camp, so you couldn't think of anywhere that would offer you a higher top to bottom, so yeah, maybe it is.
Just researching. Anybody else out there?
How much it costs?
To go, well, you have to pay for a trekking permit and a paragliding permit. So the paragliding permit's $600 and the trekking permit is several $100s as well. If you go with an outfit like Paraglide Kilimanjaro, they organise everything for you, and so all the porters are paid for, the food's included, all the ground support, so the car that gets you to there, and it costs something like $5,000 all in.
Life experience.
It's a good life experience.
How many people would do it? How many people would love to do that?
Yeah.
Fantastic. And does that include non-flyers now? Because this could be your goal. Oh, excellent. There's your end stop.
3 flights, apparently.
Yeah, just 3 flights and you're off.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay. Oh yeah, I've got one over there. You'll have to shout.
What about altitude sickness walking up to 6,000 metres?
Yeah, you do have to take it slowly. So they advise you to walk very slowly and to drink lots of water. And in fact, everybody felt some effects, and it varied on which day you felt it. So some people from like 2,700 metres, that's just the second day, were having headaches and things. Everybody by the last day had headaches and feeling a bit sick and that kind of thing. But the Tanzanian guides, there were 3 of them on the team, and they're all trained in the medical aspect of it as well, and they came and checked everybody's pulses and blood oxygen every evening, and they monitored how everybody was acclimatising, and they actually offered Diamox to people, or they suggested that people start taking Diamox if they had less than 80% blood oxygen saturation, for example. So yeah, luckily for none of us it was debilitating, but people were definitely less energetic than they would have been at lower altitudes, and we all walked extremely slowly on the last day. But you just have to take it slowly. The Africans say pole, it means just go slowly. And part of the reason for choosing the route that we did actually was it had that dog leg to Mwenzi, which meant that we took longer to do the altitude gain. But we were lucky on the way up. We actually saw some people who were not going to make it up. They were kind of sat there and being fed drinks and sent back down again, basically. But, yeah. It's
Training. Yeah, there's another question there in the middle.
Sure, a bit of a different one, but do you know how much the ice has retreated on top in recent years?
Apparently it covers something like 2 square kilometres now. And somebody said they've heard it might be all gone by 2025, which is really soon, isn't it? I don't know how accurate that prediction is, but yeah, it's quite frightening. It's a glacier that's not fed, they said, so it only retreats. It won't ever come back.
Oh, that's depressing, sir. There's a question over there.
Yeah, just the weather conditions you have with the cloud in the morning, is that always the case?
The days that we were on the mountain, that was always the case. Yeah, the cloud always came in during the morning. We were extremely lucky, though, with that summit day. I know that other people have tried since, and they've had high winds, or they've had just too much cloud. So we were extremely lucky. But yeah, that seems to be the story. And in fact, in the Ashley Doubtfire article, he talks about it as well. You have to get off early for the reason that the clouds will be there later.
It looked like when you were gliding down, that it was already forming.
Yeah,
By
so
the
when we
time you
turned around
landed,
and looked
was
behind, we could see there was like it wasn't on the very top, but you could see a strip like this. But by the time we landed and looked back up, you wouldn't have been able to get off. It had all kind of closed in again.
Wow.
And I think the next day there wasn't even a window. So we landed and we were like, the next day, what if we'd have gone to the summit? Would we have had a chance today? But we wouldn't have.
Yeah.
So I think we made the right call. But
Yeah, I think you definitely made the right call there. Any other questions? Okay. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Charlie.